Welcome back to Questing Beast. I'm Ben. Today we'll be taking a look at the box set of Old School Essentials, which is the hardcover, fully fleshed out version of BX Essentials, which I reviewed previously. I'll put a link to it right up there at the top. Before we get started, though, quick shout out to some of my new patrons, including Robofini, Sean, Greg Lindemann, Dan Webb, Pax, and Gabriel Leah. Or Lee, perhaps? Sorry if I'm messing up your name. And of course, my questing knights, Dwayne, Eric from Bloat Games, and Alex Dzuricky, who are being immortalized in the description box below. Thank you so much, patrons, for supporting the channel. So, Old School Essentials is, along with BX Essentials, which was the previous version, is a tightened, streamlined, in terms of presentation, version of the basic and expert versions of Dungeons & Dragons. So in particular, I'm talking about this edition of Dungeons & Dragons. If you want to see a lot of detail as to what's in these books, I would look at my previous review. Today I'll be looking at the way that this has been revised a little bit and how the presentation has been sharpened up. This is a very accurate retroclone of that BX version of D&D. But it's just been reorganized so that it is much easier to use and far more approachable, especially for modern gamers. So if you get the box set here, what you get is the whole game in a number of smaller books. So these are all hardcover books instead of softcover, which the original edition of BX Essentials used to look like. Make some space here. So these are broken down into smaller chunks. This allows for Old School Essentials to be very modular. You can swap out different books for replacements depending on your preferred way to play. So you could have one for science fantasy or sci-fi, and you can simply swap in that book for probably the genre rules, because this one focuses more on fantasy. And then you would simply use that along with the other books, and there you go. The books also come in a all-in-one set. So you can get them all together. This is the Classic Fantasy Rules Tome. So if you want to go with Classic Fantasy, you would get this all together. At the time that I'm making this video, I believe that this book is sold out, although it may be back in print later. So I would check the website, which I will put down in the description below, where you can see where to get all of these books. One great feature is that this box set is actually large enough that when you put all of the books inside, let me see if I can show you here, it actually leaves some space. So you can fit all of these books plus the rules tome into one box, which is really neat. Or what a lot of people are probably going to do is collect more of these little rule books and put them all in one box. So the main thing that drew me to BX Essentials originally, and then of course Old School Essentials, is the layout, because that's what really sets this stuff apart. The original edition of Dungeons & Dragons is actually remarkably well organized, but it's still not great. Things are split across books in an not terribly useful fashion. You have to flip back and forth between different books, and this takes everything from those original D&D editions and dramatically simplifies them in terms of their presentation. All of the rules are kept as accurate and as close to original D&D as possible. It's just made much, much easier to reference. It's also full of lots of great illustrations by a wide variety of fantasy artists. The layout is what I tend to call control panel layout, by which I mean that anytime you have one particular topic, for example, character classes like cleric, things are put onto a 2-page spread as much as possible. This reduces the amount of page flipping dramatically, makes things way easier to reference. One great thing about Old School Essentials is that the combat system in basic and expert D&D tended to be a little bit wonky. It used THAC0, which people today find a little bit confusing, although it's not terribly complicated. But this provides the direct translation into ascending armor class. So if you prefer to just roll your d20s and add your bonus, this has you covered in the brackets right there. Absolutely seamless. I believe the layout has been slightly reorganized and clarified from BX Essentials, but it's largely the same. Just very, very easy to use and to reference. New players have a much easier time with this. I ran Old School Essentials with my family recently over Thanksgiving, where we ran a Dolmenwood adventure, Winter's Daughter. That's right. That was a really great adventure, and it worked really well with this rule set. The new players were able to take to the game very quickly. One of the reasons to buy this is for the great illustrations. If you already own BX Essentials, the slightly less deluxe version of this, do you need to upgrade? I wouldn't say that you really need to. There's no rules changes. It's really just format and layout upgrades, along with the nice hardcover presentation and, of course, the art. You have your cleric and magic user spells. Show off some of the art here. That's a great one. I love the diversity of artists. You really get a sense of the different ways that this type of fantasy world could be portrayed. It's much less unified than something that Wizards of the Coast would put out, and in my opinion, that is a benefit. Because when people play this type of game, all of the worlds that they play, the style of it, the feel, is going to be radically different. And I feel like the art kind of represents that well. There's a lot of really good black and white art as well. I really love this particular illustrator. I'm not sure what their name is. I'd have to look that up. But I've seen a lot of art being prepared for the Dolmenwood campaign setting that I believe uses this artist, which is a really great choice. It really fits the Dolmenwood setting well. In essence, if you are looking to try old school D&D and you don't want to do one of the hipstery hacks of D&D, you want to do something fairly faithful to early D&D, then this is the edition to get. Old School Essentials is the benchmark. I see more and more people are developing adventures and add-ons that work with Old School Essentials, and I'm really glad to see that because I really want it to become the standard. It's extremely clean, it's clear, it's easy to use, it's easy to learn from, and it just provides that great foundation upon which you can build further things. Old School D&D in general is very modular, and this works really well with that modularity. Partially, of course, because the books are actually modular. You can swap them in and out. But also the way that each of the different rule systems is fairly discrete and doesn't interact all that much with the other rule systems. So you can pop things in and out. That's what people have been doing for decades. And this really accentuates that. It makes it much easier to do because you get to see all of the rules for one particular topic all in one place. So you know exactly what you're changing, and you'll be able to see how it's going to affect things more easily, I think. I'm particularly curious about new settings that are going to be developed for Old School Essentials. Sci-fi, of course, is a big one, and the Dolmenwood campaign setting is really high up there in terms of my most anticipated stuff that's coming out for Old School D&D. All right, so we have all of our monsters here. Very clean layout. We have our stat block. We have some special attacks. Everything's done with these little arrow bullet points, very similar to the format that we saw in Winter's Daughter, which is a great little adventure. Whenever I see stuff that Gavin Norman puts out for Old School Essentials, it always just like puts to shame so many of the big RPGs put out by industry leaders, because so much care and attention is put towards making this easy to use and just towards clarity and ease of hacking. It's really great. It really exemplifies that old school feel of this being your game. This thing is owned by you. You are entitled to take it apart, to hack it up, put things in, take things out, and it looks so beautiful in the process. These books are very sturdy. They're nice hard covers. They're not, let's see, are they stitch bound? A little hard to see. I think they are. No, I think it's glue bound if I look at the binding right here. Although if I'm wrong, please correct me. Nope, I'm totally wrong. There is definitely stitching there. Stitch bound, everybody. That's great construction. This is going to last a really long time. It doesn't lay out quite as flat as I would like. It's hard to get books that really lay flat unless they're fairly large or if they're like staple bound. But this is definitely very functional, and they're very easy to hold in one hand. When I was running Winter's Daughter, I was running the game holding one of these books or the Winter's Daughter book, which is very similarly sized, in one hand. I just held it like this, and I could run the game right off of it while standing and walking around the table. It was great. You can't do that with these big, heavy, full-size, letter-sized hardbacks. So that's Old School Essentials. It is, in terms of the text, a fairly minor upgrade from BX Essentials, but in terms of presentation, artwork, and physical construction, I'd say it's a pretty major upgrade. And if you're getting into old school D&D, this is a absolutely fantastic place to start and to build from. As usual, I will put links down in the description below where you can check this out for yourself. There's a number of places where you can buy it in different formats, and so check that out if you are interested. Thanks for watching, everybody. I'll see you guys next time.